What's up? What's up?
Dude, that fired me up.
Love
I
it,
was like,
man.
I didn't know how long it was gonna go. I was taking a quick thing for Instagram here. I was like, I'm gonna get caught with my phone like this, trying to get the best. I was just trying to capture like the best part of that intro. That's sweet. I need my marketing guy on that now.
Hey,
That's
man.
exciting.
Hey, I know a guy that Nick Krim. He put that together for me, so you can always make it happen. Shout out to
That
Nick Krim.
guy, yeah, shout out that guy, dude. That guy never ceases to impress. It's crazy.
Nah,
Um,
he's on top of it, man.
yeah, man.
So
So yeah.
we're doing another episode of James Massey Live, where we're interviewing an agent that's killing it in their industry in order to provide tremendous value to the real estate agent. And I'm super excited today to have Pat on with me. Like for you all don't know, this is he's a young guy, but he's making moves in this industry. He's making things happen. So I'm excited for you to kind of be able to share your story in of itself. So I know it's been like what 6 years as an agent, right?
Yeah, something like that. You
Something
lose
like
you lose track you lose track, man. The years pass pretty quickly because of how hectic our business is for sure. But yeah, 6 years now, I think, and it's been a heck of a ride so far. So those first few years are definitely. I think I'm finally on the other side of that wave of like starting your business up, and those first few years were definitely tougher, but I think that 3 to 5 year mark is kind of where things start to get not easier, but I don't know. I feel like you start to kind of figure it out a little bit, right? We like to think so, at
that.
least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So tell us like origins, man. Like what what's the background? What kind of got you into wanting to sell real estate and all that.
Yeah. So for me, it was, believe it or not, it wasn't always something that I wanted to do. And I say believe it or not because, those who know me know my father's been in this business for 20 years. Yeah, my father had been in it. It's kind of all I knew. I'm 27 years old now. I've literally moved like 23 to 26 times, something like that. Him and I are similar in that sense that we kind of never settle. So he would, find another opportunity, another flip, another potential build or whatever. And we moved around a lot as kids. And growing up playing hockey and stuff, you spend a lot of time in the car with your parents. And my time was spent listening to negotiations over the phone, and trying my best not to interrupt. So real estate's always been something that's kind of been an option for me. But I knew I wanted to be in sales. I knew I wanted to do something else along those lines, but wasn't sure about real estate. And when I had graduated college, I was in Ottawa. It was a big city outside of Kingston in Canada here. And I met some guys in the beer industry, and I thought, well, this is fun. Like these guys get to travel around and sell beer at different, bars and stuff like that. And I was like, this could be a pretty cool industry to be in. And while I was up there, those guys ended up introducing me to some other guys that were also in real estate. And I thought, I think it was like 6 months left on my lease. I'm going to be in Ottawa anyways. Maybe, I might have an opportunity with these guys. I landed an internship, which ended up turning into a job. So I was there for, I think, a year and a half, which I was an inside sales agent. So an ISA for like a pretty like high tier team. I think they've been number one or number two in Ottawa since I've been with them. They started their own, so they were at Keller Williams when I started with them, and I literally helped them pack their stuff up and move to start their own brokerage. A Remax brokerage, wasn't independent, but I went over there, and it was crazy. So it's Remax Core in Ottawa. They were the fastest growing Remax in the world for 2 years in a row. So the year that I was there, like the first 6 months I was with the Keller Williams there, but when I went over to this new office, like man, they were setting up ping pong tables, and there was a Netflix room, and we had a disco ball in our office. Like it was kind of like Wolf of Wall Street, but not quite as crazy. So I fell in love, dude. Like I was like, 19 years old. I was like, this is really cool. And, I could also see like, shit, some of these guys are, that are grinding are making good money doing this. Maybe this is something I could do. I definitely got to see like, I mean, being an inside sales agent is hard. I think that if anybody can do that, they can sell. I actually have an interesting approach to like the inside sales agent role. I think it's more of a transitional role. I think that agents should start doing that and then work their way up, because if you can cold call and you can get those no's, like you can close a deal, right? So anyways, in doing that, I got really fired up about real estate. Was like, yep, this is something I want to do. I started doing my courses, and once I got licensed, I was like, I don't, I've learned from somebody else because nobody wants to listen from their father. Um, and my network is in Kingston. I grew up here. It's a small town. We're 200 and something thousand. Everybody I know is there. I'll probably do better in my town than I would in Ottawa. So I came back home when I finally got licensed. I actually did a little bit of ISA work and worked with some of the ISAs that we had within our independent brokerage here, and yeah, and then it was off to the races. So it's been a journey from there. But that's kind of like the introduction to getting into real estate and kind of how I ended up kind of getting sucked into this crazy industry. So.
Man, it's a trip that you talk about, being an inside sales agent first and how that really helped you kind of get going. And, I talk to a lot of agents and they don't necessarily want to make calls, cold calls or any type of calls whatsoever. What are some of the things that like really kind of got you to like get off of that tip and like just make it happen by making those phone calls?
You mean like doing it on my own type of thing, or
Yeah, just
getting
making
into?
like the inside sales agent calls where a lot of agents like they don't want to make those calls.
Yeah, it's I think that's the foundation of your business. And honestly, like I'll tell it how it is right now. I'd love to say it's all, glory, but my first 3 years in real estate were a very much an uphill battle. Like I said, coming back to Kingston, I thought I had this big network. We have a huge family. I have a ton of friends and I grew up playing hockey, so I knew a lot of people. And I thought because I knew a lot of people, those people would just call me. What was a rude awakening that first year where like some of my best buddies were buying houses from other people that, they didn't even know. And I was like, damn, like, I had this vision of like, I have this network. I think this is going to be my business. But at the end of the day, like you can't focus on that. And so my first actually like 2 or 3 years, I was stuck around that like 20 units mark. I couldn't break that. And I think the truth of it was like I understood what I needed to do, but I wasn't making the volume of phone calls that I realized I needed to. And once we came to EXP, we got exposed to some bigger people, and that's actually when it kind of clicked. Like I was doing the ISA stuff before, and I was doing it when I was on my own, but I wasn't doing it to the volume that you really need to, because it's like 12 to 15 touches to get a successful lead conversion, and most agents only follow up 2 times, I think, is the average. So it finally clicked for me when I realized, the potential of like how much money is really, possible and able to be made in this business, and got aligned with the right people, and just it all clicked in one moment for me of just like it was one of the EXP conferences where I was like, holy shit, I'm not working hard enough, right? And it's a numbers game. It's and Michael Reese told me that one time sitting across the table from him. He said the richest person in this room is the person who's heard the word no the most. Ironically, he was the richest person in the room. But that's when it all kind of clicked, where it was like, man, like I need to be actively searching the word no. And, we all fear rejection, obviously, but I think you have to get through that rejection in order to be successful. And, finally realizing that like I have to go for these no's. I have to make way more phone calls than I'm making right now. If I want this, to be successful, that was it. Because there's no excuse. Like, there's no lack of opportunities in our business. And I think there's a misconception that it takes money to make money in our business. It doesn't always. It takes effort to make money. And I think when that finally clicked, it was like, made sense.
Love it, man. So one of the things that you've been able to do is like, I pretty much see you all over social media, man. Like I see your posts, I see the things you're doing, the funny posts and everything, and you just getting so much traction from doing that kind of stuff. Like what kind of got you into doing that part in order to attract business for yourself, or did you always know that that was going to be the thing that's going to start attracting you business?
Yeah, no, I think like I didn't at all. I didn't even like what, the first 2 or 3 years in the business, you can't even find a post that I have of any house we had for sale. I wasn't on social media at all. I thought I was like bothering people with posting on social media, and the people that I had on social media were like my friends, and I didn't want to bug them with my business stuff. I watched at one of the EXP conferences. I think it was the first one actually before we even came to EXP. I watched Becky speak, and she's like the queen of Instagram as she's known. So I watched her, and she just talked about, like, she told a handful of stories where she was like, yeah, like, because I'm posting so often on social media, I've had people call me and say, like, I want you to list my house. And I remembered those first 3 years of like how much of a grind it was to go and do a listing presentation and put everything on the line and my heart on the line and pitch the best pitch that I could, had practiced months and months on. And then somebody not list their house with me. When she said, like, oh, people just call me and say, like, I want to do business with you, I was like, holy shit. Like, this is something that I need to be doing. And then, she said, imagine if you did 5 extra deals, do the math on that, what that would be worth. If you did 5 extra deals next year from social media, and I mean, the math's pretty easy to be done, right? So it was like, shit, this is something that I need to do more seriously, at least to the point where I'm doing so many deals that I don't have time for it. One of the things my dad has always said is, like, you need as many pillars as possible. So I don't think that, like, social media is the only way to get business. I don't think open houses are the only way to get business, or like lead gen, or any of the other, platforms are the only way or the best way to get business. It's like, you have to do it all, and be omnipresent. Like Grant Cardone says, like, you got to be everywhere at all times. So, yeah, same thing. It was like, it honestly came down to one moment at a conference where it all clicked, and I thought, yeah, I got to take this more seriously. And, if my friends or, family don't support the fact that I'm preaching my business, well, this is my business and this is my livelihood. So if you don't support that on social media, and then you don't really support my family anyway. So, that was a tough pill to swallow. And sometimes it is hard getting in front of a camera. I hate when people say, like, oh, it's easy, whatever. Like, no, it's not. It never gets easier. It's always weird. You and I are like live right now. If we mess up, like, there's pressure. So, that never gets easier, but you just got to realize, like, it's part of the business. It's part of what we do. And, not everybody's going to like what you put out there. I've had my fair share of that, unfortunately, too. And, you just got to be genuine on social media. And anyways, it's paid off in the long run. And, yeah, it's an important part, I think, in running a successful business, and in our industry, at least. Right.
How many times do you think, like, you have to post, like, in order to make an impact, or is it just something that you just kind of do just sparingly, or you just do it all the time? Like, what does that frequency look like?
I think as much as possible, but the, like, kind of asterisk below that is, like, if it's genuine. I think that if you're just posting to post and you're like, I have to meet my quota, then it's not you. So I have a podcast of my own here, and I just had a guest on this week, and she said, like, one of the most important things that she finds with social media, which I couldn't agree with more, is like people getting to know you before they even call you. So if somebody feels like they know you, then that's why people want to do business with who they know, like, and trust. Yeah. And if you can establish those 3 things through your social media, then that's how you're going to gain people's business, not just by posting like a sold house every single day. So it just needs to be about your life. I think it needs to be a good percentage. A lot of people say, like, oh, it's 30% business and 50% your life and this percent of this and whatever. It's like, no, it's just everything is like, your business is everything. You're 100% family, 100% business, 100% your hobbies. Everything needs to be on there. So I think it's just trying to document, like, what's exciting about your life and, what's going well for you. And at the same time, like, challenges as well that you might be going through. So I don't think there's like an exact formula to, like, how much you need to post, but as much as you can is the easy answer to that. But I think people get caught up in, I have to have 5 posts this week. So then they post something and it's like, is that really you, I guess, is like the question, right? So, it's just got to be as quality content as you can, but in genuine. I guess I shouldn't say quality, because I also think, like, some of the best videos that I've had that are on social media are like me talking to my phone in my truck, complaining about something that happened, or, telling a crazy story. So, as long as it's genuine, I don't think there's a limit on how much, but as much as you can, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, man. Like, in this climate right now, like, people, they generally want to know about you before they do business with you. They want to know about your kids. They want to know about your, where you go out, where you have fun at, and in that whole process, like you said, like, they start to reach out. Just think about the whole thing you're saying. Like, you had somebody that was looking to get a agent for a listing to reach out to you. Like, how many people would love to have that situation?
Yeah, 100%. And here's my piece on social media. This is, like, actually where I think the highest value is. The highest value is not in getting clients who are actively looking to search you up and, find you through social media. That happens. And the people that know you, it's like a billboard that they drive past every day. So they're seeing your face. So that's great. The best thing for me and from that I've gained from social media, hands down for my business, has been the connections that I've made with other realtors. So we talked about this at the meeting this morning. Actually, I was saying, like, somebody asked me how. I said I got a referral out in a ways away out in Canada here, and I was like, they're like, how did you pick the person that you wanted to refer to, like, your potential client? And I said, I actually vetted them through social media. So, like, I looked up that area and who I'd been already following from that area. And I, recognized one name in particular that stood out to me because they're very consistent and I was familiar with their social media. So you get to make, and I've made genuine connections with people all over the United States, all over Canada, where, I post something, maybe it's a funny post about something, about real estate, or sometimes it's even something that they might disagree with, but we get chatting and, you end up making friends in our industry, so that if somebody ever, has a client that's moving to the small town of Kingston, Ontario, they'll send them my way. So I had one realtor in a year that I connected with from social media who sent me 6 deals. And I was like, that right there is enough for me to post every day for the rest of my life. Right. So I think that's truthfully like the golden nugget that you get from social media is the connections that you make. Right. And keeping those connections too, because, it's all about who you associate. I mean, that's, our whole thing with our brokerage is, like, you are who you associate yourself with. I would have never met guys like Nick Krem. I would have met them maybe at the conference, but him and I connect on social media like every week. Yeah. So, I mean, try keeping up with that guy though. But, it's keeping you around those like-minded individuals, and, like, the referral base is huge. So.
Yeah. I mean, like, once you start seeing the traction behind it, like, by you doing the post and you're starting to get people start to reach out, it's working. I mean, it makes you kind of just want to do more of it. So, I mean, just in the process of reaching out to agents, right? And if you want to actually show them some of the things that you've been able to do to be more successful, like if you're a new agent, or if you're an agent that does not quite have the success that you have had, Pat, what are some of the things that you do to kind of stay relevant in the real estate space?
Sorry, so give me that again. So agents that are just starting out?
Yeah, agents that are just starting out, or agents that just haven't quite hit the numbers that they want to hit for ourselves, because, like, not, just kind of bragging on you a little bit. You're doing about what, 60 million a year in volume. So if an agent wants to get to that level, what are some of the things that you suggest that they start doing in order to take their business bigger?
Yeah. Honestly, like, well, it seems like we're getting. I've been getting straight to the point here today. So I think it's it's the amount of effort that you put in. If you're not putting in, if you're not getting the results that you want, and you're putting in 60 hours a week, then there's something that you need to dissect. But if you're putting in 20 or 30 hours a week, you're not considering this a full-time job or a career or your own business. If you think about what it takes to start a business in any other industry, that owner, if you're starting a restaurant, those owners are there 24 hours a day until that business gets up and running. So for years sometimes, right? So if not forever. So if you're not putting in 60 to 80 hour weeks in your first couple of years in the business, or you're not where you're at and you're not putting in 60, 80 hour weeks, then you're not putting enough into your business to expect better results, right? It's like, if you want more, you need to do more. But part of that is, and like, this is what, like, kind of changed my mind was, I realized that basically that I wasn't putting in enough hours, but I had to realize that, like, this career is like everything. It's not just you go to work and you go and you're a realtor. Like, every day of your life, you're prospecting. Everybody that you meet is a potential buyer or seller. So, making those connections, you start to become a lot more conscious of making those connections everywhere you go. Every aspect of your day becomes about real estate, and I believe, one of the things that I started doing was open houses. I did like 6 open houses a weekend. I bought way too many signs. I blew up every single, corner in Kingston with like 15 signs, to the point where other realtors would text me and be like, man, what are you doing? Like, I got to drive by 10 of your faces every day when I go to work. And that was the idea, though, I was like, I need to be everywhere. I need the branding. I don't have the money to spend on big signs or advertising and boosting your social media stuff. So I was like, I could put open house signs on corners and I could work my team's listings until I build my own database. So it's like you got to put in a lot more, and that's the other thing. Like I didn't realize. It's like, I don't know if you've read Grant Cardone's 10X rule, but it's the same thing. Like, I don't think I realized, and I don't think a lot of people realize like how much effort it actually takes. It takes 10 times more effort than you'd expect to get the results that you want. And I think that like, if, the reason I believe that if you're not growing, you're dying. And I think that a lot of realtors get in this business for the same thing. We like the idea that there's no ceiling and that we can continue to be more successful every year. And you have to have that, find that drive, I guess I should say, if you don't already have it, is find the drive to say, I did this many units last year, I need to do more next year. And that's what kept pushing me too. So I had a number in my head of like, I need to hit this many units, I need to hit it. And that's every month though. Now it's like, how do we do better than last month? Right. And yeah, but I think it comes down. I think the biggest thing was like effort. You have to put in the hours, and it's a lot, and it's hard, man. Like I've seen it. My dad put in 12-hour days when I was young, and it takes some stress on your family and stuff too. But you have to be able to live like other people are not willing to live now, so you can live like no one else can later. And at some point you got to put in that sacrifice in order to get the results that you want, I think.
Yeah.
Average effort equals average results, right?
Love it, man. Love it. I mean, I talk to a lot of agents, and it's always, how to do less and get more. Very few of them talk about how to do more in order to get to where where you want to be, and then eventually from that success, you can start dialing back a little bit.
That's exactly it. Do the work now. Put in the hours now, and your efforts. It's like I forget who the author is, but The Compound Effect too is another good book. Like you put in the effort now, so that effort compounds. After time. Worry about how you can do less later. Once you have a proven track record of at least a couple of years of high levels of success, and then figure that out. I'm still trying to figure out how to do more, man. Like I'm still in that stage of like. Until I'm doing 100 units a year myself, like that's when it's time to figure out how to leverage and do less. But until I get to that point, let's just keep growing, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So are you putting like systems in place where it comes to like some of this stuff as well? I mean, do you already have these systems in place that you're doing in order like to have like to create a little bit more leverage within your business?
Oh, 100%. Like I still think that, I have I have many whiteboards in my office, and one of them says like a bunch of quotes I have on the left side. And one of the main ones is systems equals success. So I do think like without systems in place, you're doomed, you're kind of doomed to fail because, you get all this traction and you work really hard. And if you don't have a system, what happens is you get so overwhelmed with, smaller stuff, or maybe not, like you need to be able to prioritize, your A, B, and C level activities. And if you're not doing what your highest and best use of your time is, all those things kind of fall off. So you have to have a system for that. You have to have, obviously like we have a system from from a lead starts to all the way to listing to a closed sale. The big thing I did this year too, is I actually brought on my fiance. So she does, and she's a client care coordinator, we call her. So like one of the biggest things was, closing gifts. We needed a system for that because we're doing a lot of them, hopefully. So, so we brought in a bunch. We systemized how we do closing gifts. Everybody doesn't get necessarily the same thing, but now it's like, there's a system to it so that, without systems, there's going to be too many speed bumps in your business. So I brought her on. The other thing I did was I brought on kind of like an inside sales agent myself. I call him my business manager, but he essentially is like my right hand. So he handles, new lead generation until it gets to the point where we can book appointments. And then I'll take the appointment from there to the finish. And then he also does a lot of the admin stuff that I may not be able to get to. With our team, we have some admin, some great admin help and marketing help as well. So he's more so just like helping me with get offers prepared, get, listings started, stuff like that. Because yeah, it got to the point where like you only have so many hours in a day. And if you want to do more, like I got to the point where I had like every hour in the day that I was working, I was like, I couldn't do more because I just physically didn't have enough time. So, we had to put more systems in place for that. But I think another key thing to like that is like, I think you have to set those systems up before you get the success that you want.
Yeah.
Like, where do you want to go, and what does that business look like, and reverse engineer from there what systems you would need to have in place, because otherwise you get the success you want. Let's say like you need to be at 10 units a month, and you hit 10 units a month, but you don't have the systems to support 10 units a month. Now you're like, I'm doing 10 units a month, I'm busy as hell,
Right.
what am I going to do with this, and this, because I hadn't thought about that when I was only doing 5 units a month.
Yeah.
So yeah, systems are super crucial, I think, that in any business, for sure.
But I mean, that's always like I guess the hard part for a lot of people, because they got their number where they want to get to in order to support those systems, like those people and things of that nature. So they might have those 10 deals a month, but it's like at what point do you actually make that higher before you don't want to make it too soon,
Mm.
and you don't want to make it too late. So just trying to figure that whole part out, can be tricky as well.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that's a tough balancing act. If you find the specific mathematics for when to hire and when to fire, you let me know, because I don't think anybody's figured that one out yet. But I agree, yeah, because sometimes it's too late. For me, it was too late. It was like, holy, like I don't even have a life anymore, and my family and my personal life was starting to suffer. So I was like, I need help. It was too late, which I think is kind of the commonly, what happens more times than not is like people are like, I need help. Oh my gosh, then they make a hire, and sometimes that doesn't work out that well, because if you're hiring at a necessity, then you might not take on the right person too, right? So I'm lucky with who I have. Obviously, my fiance is not going anywhere, I hope, but my business manager Trevor's a rock star as well. So yeah.
Yeah, that definitely is a good hire.
Yeah.
They going.
Yeah.
Well, look, man, Pat, man, it's been great chatting with you, and having you to kind of share a little bit about, like, the whole process of real estate, especially when it comes to social media. I mean, like I said, I've been watching your stuff and watching you just kind of kill it. All the posts that you're doing on a regular basis, and the funny posts is probably the best ones. Those are my favorite. So,
Yeah, I should probably do more of those, but they're kind of time consuming too. But yeah, I appreciate that, man. It's fun. I think we got to have fun. Geez, in this business, like with the amount of stress that we go through, I think it's important to find those funny moments and stuff that you got to be able to laugh at. So, when you're giving a deal CPR and you can barely keep it alive, like you got to be able to laugh at it. I say blind optimism is the key to our business. Like if you're not, blindly optimistic to the point where the deal is like on fire and completely burned to the ground, you're out of luck. So yeah, man, I appreciate how you having me on here too. And if anybody else wants to connect, my social media is on there. I put my tag in there as well. So um, yeah, whatever I can do to help. Obviously I'm pretty passionate about this business, and it's done a lot for me. It's been an uphill battle for the most part, but it's a pretty emotional business for sure.
love it, man. I
Yeah.
love it. Man, like I said, once again, I mean, I appreciate you jumping on and sharing. We do these every Thursday where we're interviewing an agent that's killing it within their industry in order to provide tremendous value to the real estate agent. Pat has shared, a lot with us today. So, once again, like if you got any questions about him, or maybe even a partnership, or what partnership look like within his organization, his information is right there. If you got questions about me, about partnership within my organization, or you just want to pick our brains about real estate, one of the things that I pride myself on is sharing. No man is an island. It took other people in order to impart into each one of us. So therefore, we actually do it back. We pay it forward. So once again, man, I appreciate it, brother. Hey, are you going to Vegas next week?
I really want to, man, and I have my heart set on it, because that event changed my life a couple of years ago. And I strongly believe in that. However, I get married 2 weeks later, so it's probably not a good idea. Yeah.
That's probably not a good idea. You're probably right
No.
about that one.
Should have planned. I should have planned the wedding around the EXP conference. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah. So next year I'll be there, and every event next year, because I strongly believe in those conferences, and if anybody's watching, like they are, like I'm not even kidding, they're life changing. From my very first EXP conference, 12 months after it, I tripled my business in 12 months. because of what I learned at that conference. So events are huge. Big things happen, big decisions happen at big events.
Love it, man.
So yeah.
Well, congratulations, man, and for the wedding, and looking forward to see you soon, buddy.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
All right, take it easy.